What's it like to play the Nintendo Entertainment System? Nintendo Entertainment System. Now you're playing with power.
So people, it's been a while since the last collection video. It's been a hectic month, so to say, but finally, here you go. Here's 5 great NES titles that I'm bringing to you, and I hope you enjoy. So coming out in 1989 is the first Ninja Gaiden game by Koei Tecmo. And compared to the second one that I have, this one's a little bit more primitive, but I actually think the music is a lot more catchy. The platforming's still the same, it's super actiony. You get all your upgrades, which is a ton of fun. You got your shurikens, the fire, and the game really gets you good game feel and how to use these, and because in order to progress far, you really need to learn how to get these upgrades, use them properly, and then of course memorize the level, because the difficulty in this game just doesn't let up from the get-go. There's actually a pretty good story here, and as far as I know, it's the first game that actually had story-driven cutscenes involved, or at least it was the first console game. The story is Ryu Hayabusa finds a letter from his missing father telling him to go to America and meet with the archaeologist. Dr. Smith, who then tells Ryu two hidden statues that his father hid, has the power to end the world if the cult leader Jackio gets these and revives the ancient demon Jacin, responsible for the attack on Ryu's father. So it's got kind of this crazy story-driven, defeat the cult leader, otherwise chaos will ensue kind of deal. It's quite fun. One interesting aspect about the game is boss battles seem to have a lot of horror movie lookalikes, you could say, such as Jason Voorhees a couple times shows up, or Bloody Moth, I think, is in the arcade version. So the NES version doesn't have that. What I actually think this is the definitive Ninja Gaiden game on the console. It was also ported to the Master System and PC Engine. PC Engine only in Japan, Master System only in the PAL region. But in the case of the Master System version, that's a very different game, even though it has the same title. One thing I must say is, when it comes to the hit detection, it's spot on, but when you get hit, it has that Castlevania nonsense where you go backwards and it seems to just throw you in a pit every time. And that's where the main difficulty of this game lies. It's not so much the enemies, but the enemies do respawn if you go a millimeter off the screen, so that's continuing to be hard, but it's a game that you just have to memorize and just get your reflexes up in order to beat. It is beatable. So hey, another Konami title, and this is actually one of the first shooters I ever came across growing up, and it's called Life Force, otherwise known as Salamander pretty much everywhere else. It came out in 1986 as a spin-off to the Gradius series. So I actually played this before Gradius, and I am just rubbish when it comes to shooters, and this game is just no exception to that rule. But what I do like about it is it has 2-player cooperative gameplay, which is so much fun, because nothing's better than being terrible at a game with a friend. But it also it switches between horizontal stages, which is usual for shooters, but also goes to a vertically scrolling stage. And funny thing was, we actually used to tilt a smaller CRT TV on its side so we can play those levels, because we just weren't used to the vertical ones. It does have your usual lives and continues, but the number of continues can be changed with the Konami code, so that's good, so you can actually prolong your inevitable death, so that's pretty... And the power-ups are very Gradius-esque, hence, of course, it's from Gradius, pretty much. You get your options, you get your missiles that go along. You got to get the upgrades, otherwise you're not going to last long through the game. Just in this very first section, it's very frustrating because you have these regenerative bio-life forms, and it's just this wall that keeps regenerating. It's quite annoying. I've never gotten too far in this game, but I have gotten to the third boss before, so that speaks volumes to just how difficult it is, but still so much fun. The environment in this game is fantastic. Like its name implies, life force, you feel like you're within some organism the entire game. And the boss battles are so cool. I've seen the later level ones, but each one has this, it takes up the whole screen kind of deal, and you just feel enclosed in this epic battle of life or death situation. Now, because the boss takes up the whole screen, there's nothing else on it except black, besides the boss, so that's kind of a downside. So, basically, Life Force is a must-play shooter for the NES. I'm so happy I have this game. Now it's time for one of my favorite NES games, Kirbys Adventure, developed by HAL Laboratory, published by Nintendo, directed by Masahiro Sakurai. He's a genius. This came out in the later stages of the NES in 1993. It's an action platformer. I mean, if you don't know Kirby, you got to get this game right away. Whether it's on the Wii U Virtual Console or getting the remake on the Game Boy Advance, which was Nightmare in Dreamland. But this was the first console Kirby. It's the only one that came out on the NES. It's the second Kirby ever that came, and it came after the Game Boy of Kirby's Dreamland. So this is the one in which defined Kirby as the vacuum that steals powers. And by steals powers is there's various enemies in the game that have different abilities, and you suck them up, gain their power, and then you get to do it. The game, I actually find this game to be probably the most difficult Kirby game still to date. But that isn't saying much, because the Kirby games are notoriously easy, very kid-driven, friendly, and yeah, I mean, it's Kirby. He does have little jumping, floats in the air when you press up. He's got this sick soccer-like slide tackle, which is pretty cool. End or midway through levels, you'll find warp stars that'll take you to various places, maybe the next level. Each main level pretty much has a boss fight of some kind, and the boss fights are so much fun. For example, at one point in the game, you face Meta Knight. It was his introduction. He's a lot of fun. I don't know how to explain this game any more than it's just fun. So how about this? There's actually a plot to this game, and it's quite interesting. After waking up from his after-lunch nap without having any dreams, how dare he, Kirby goes to the Fountain of Dreams to investigate something. He discovers King Dedede has stolen the Star Rod, the source of the fountain's powers, and broken it into 7 pieces, giving 6 fragments to his allies, such as the Wispy Woods, Paint Roller, Mr. Shine, Meta Knight, a Mole, etc., etc. So you travel through the woods, battling enemies, mini-bosses, and bosses through treacherous terrain in order to collect all the fragments to the Star Rod. Once he defeats King Dedede and rebuilds the Star Rod, he places it back into the Fountain of Dreams. However, an ominous aura fills the skies and a dark creature named Nightmare emerges. And that's the overall plot. So you actually face Nightmare. King Dedede actually was trying to help the whole time. He didn't want this big enemy coming up. It's actually quite fun, and yeah, it's a fun game. The plot's kind of goofy. You get it from the instruction manual, or you could just look it up online. Just a kick back, relax kind of game. It's so much fun. Well, Konami's on a roll because here's another game by Konami, and it's Castlevania. So we went from the tough game of Ninja Gaiden to fun and easy Kirby back to tough, and you can see who makes them. It's an action platformer, to say the least, and man, it's just as hard as Ninja Gaiden, if not harder. It's up to the player to decide. I have actually beaten Ninja Gaiden. I have never beaten Castlevania. You get to that, you get to the second to last area, which is the Grim Reaper, and the game just takes a turn for the worse there. And then your whole overall objective is you're Simon Belmont, and he travels to Dracula's castle, which emerges every 100 years, and you go through numerous bosses, such as a big bat, You battle Frankenstein's monster, Igor, with Igor, a pair of mummies, Queen Medusa, and then Set Green Reaper and Dracula at the end. It's pretty cool. I mean, the game is a lot of fun. You have Simon Belmont carries this crazy whip. It's more like a chain whip in the game. It's what it looks like, and you can upgrade the whip. You get various secondary attacks, such as holy water or an axe that travels in an arc when you throw it. You really want to get these upgrades for the boss battles. It makes your life so much easier. But since the game's so hard, the odds of you having the right upgrade when it comes to the boss is pretty rare unless you play the game multiple times through. You get good enough to do that. Just like Ninja Gaiden, when you get hit, you go backwards, and if there's a pit, you're gonna die. I mean, it's one of the more notorious enemies in this game are the Medusa heads that float and go in this kind of S motion across the screen horizontally. It makes it very difficult via how the controls are. Simon can't really jump more than a couple frames, you could say. So yeah, I mean, the game's just hard. I think I can get to the 4th level consistently without much issue, but once you get to that 4th level, the game just steps it up a notch in that difficulty. The learning curve is there, but once you get halfway through, it's almost like Konami went, no, they've played half the game, this is a great idea, they'll have to suffer through the last half, only the good players will be able to get it. Luckily, there's infinite continues, much like Ninja Gaiden. The Konami code kind of helps you out for the beginning parts of the game, but it really doesn't do much for you. So summing it up, great music, hard game, super fun, very memorable. Get Castlevania. So last up here is a title that many people have probably heard of by the name of Super Mario Bros. 2, which came out in 1988, and this one's interesting. It was actually originally called Doki Doki Panic, and when Nintendo of America found the original Japanese version of Super Mario Bros. 2 too hard for Americans, similar to its predecessor, the game was converted from Doki Doki Panic to Super Mario Bros. 2, and this was the sequel that we got in the States, outside of Japan, and much of the rest of the world. Of course, it was a total success anyways, even though it was super different compared to the first game. Well, it's a 2D side-scroller just like the first game, and many other platformers of the NES era, but this one you can actually choose between 4 of the series characters: Mario, Luigi, Toad, and Princess Toadstool. And each one kind of has its own unique little characteristics. Mario is an average character, just a regular jump. Luigi has this crazy floaty jump that goes up really high, kicks his legs, it's quite hilarious. Toad is super fast, probably the hardest character to be in the game, but he's my favorite. And then there's Princess, which she has this wild, hovering action when she jumps, and probably the easiest one to beat the game with. That being said, the game is still pretty difficult for a lot of first-timers, but is probably a good intro game to Mario, other than Mario 3, of course, that being probably the best Mario game even today. It's still arguable, but anyways, the game has 20 different levels across 7 worlds, and of course there's boss battles generally at the end of them. Those are a lot of fun. We haven't really seen much of the characters from Mario 2 appear in any other Mario game since, until Super Mario 3D World came out on the Wii U, and that was kind of fun to see, with a lot of, like, Birdo and all those characters kind of come back, the Shy Guys. It's quite fun. The game is super memorable. You get a POW block, just like in the original arcade Mario game. You get your 1-ups. They have weird warp rooms that you can find just by total accident in the game, unlike the cryptic hidden things that Mario 3 has. Basically, Mario 2 is a really fun game, despite being a rehashed game of another. The plot's kind of dorky, just like Mario. Read a story, characters get kidnapped inside, and then Mario and friends go and help them. So it's really fun. Go get Mario 2. It's worth it. So those are the latest 5 games in my NES collection. Castlevania Ninja Gaiden, super hard, but must-haves for the system for sure. All these, those 5 games were all must-haves. Kirby is Kirby. It's an NES classic for sure. Probably my favorite game out of those 5, if I was to pick one of them. I hope you really enjoy it, and hope you're looking forward to the next one.